Okay guys, I'm finally getting around to telling the birth story of my third baby. If you have not watched the birth vlog, go ahead and watch that. I'm literally trying to tell this right now in the middle of my kids playing outside, which I'm watching them right now play, and the baby's sleeping. So excuse me if I'm like feeling rushed, I'm sorry. So, third baby, birth story. Let me think of where I need to start. I haven't written a thing down. I've had two other babies. I have a 3.5-year-old, a 2.5-year-old. Gave birth naturally to them. There were no complications. Everything was fine. Oliver, my firstborn, was born 38 weeks and 4 days. Liam was born on exactly 38 weeks. So I kind of expected the entire time that I would have given birth sometime in the 38th week. So 38 weeks go by all the way through. I get to 39 weeks and I'm gonna like, baby should be getting here, and the baby was not here. And you can go back in my previous vlogs and see where I was mentally and emotionally. Basically, I was done being pregnant. It was getting closer and closer to my due date, so I just started preparing mentally to go all the way to my due date. September 25th came around, which actually happened to be my husband's birthday. I woke up in the middle of the night and I had to pee, of course, and I went to the bathroom, used the bathroom, lay back down in bed, and I started noticing like, okay, I'm starting to have some back pain, which for me is contractions, because I've had back labor both times, and I started noticing like, they're pretty frequent. They weren't intense, but they were, you know, more than like a Braxton Hicks feeling. So I started paying attention to them and I could not relax and go back to sleep. So that was at 4 a.m. and I decided to get up, walk around, see what happened with the contractions, and they got more intense. So about 5 a.m. I woke up Bill and I told him, I was like, I'm having contractions, and he's like, oh, okay. So I mean, it was, you know, sleepy okay, but he went ahead and got up. He's like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know, you know, like both times before my water just broke. And it was like, oh, well, you know, things are going to start happening. And with this time, I didn't know what to do because my water hadn't broke. So there was one particular contraction, and I told him to hold on. And he was like, because we were talking back and forth, and he's like, isn't that one of those things, like if you can't talk through a contraction, like you should go to the hospital? And I was like, yeah, that is one of the things. So we went ahead and left, and it was about 5:30, 6 o'clock, somewhere in there. And it took us about 20, 25, 30 minutes to get to the hospital. And the whole time my contractions are like one right after the other. Still, my water hadn't broke. I was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely for sure it, because they were intense enough for me to know that it was real labor. Got to the hospital. I was having contractions as they were checking me in. The lady asked, she was like, do you want a wheelchair? And I was like, no, I'm fine, I don't need a wheelchair. I guess she had some experiences beforehand that week that she was like, no, we're gonna go ahead and get you a wheelchair. Or I just seemed like I was really in pain, I don't know. Anyway, contractions are just coming and coming and coming, and they're so intense. I kept trying to put an IV in my arm in between contractions, and to tell you how close they were is they couldn't get an IV in. Like, they literally could not get it in between contractions. I think she was having a hard time doing it, and then they were just also that close. It's actually 7 o'clock. And they're doing a shift change. So I had one nurse at the beginning and then a different nurse at the, like not too long after. I don't remember which one checked me, but when they did, I was 6 centimeters dilated. And I believe that was around 6:30 or 7. Like I said, they were doing a shift change, so it was all kind of like crazy with everything. But around 6:30 or 7, I was at a 6 centimeter dilation. I was sitting on the side of the bed. It just seemed like I didn't have a contraction for a couple of minutes. I don't know how long it was, but it seemed like a long time compared to how many contractions, how frequently they were coming. And I was just sitting there like, okay, like what? And then all of a sudden, this huge, just the biggest contraction, so intense. and it was pushing so hard on the baby. My water still had not broke. So I stood up, and when I stood up, I felt so much pressure from this contraction that I literally thought this baby was gonna fall out of my body. I was like, Bill, this baby's coming out. This baby is coming out right now. And he was like, what should I do? I was like, get a nurse. Our hospital room was right outside the nurse's station. So he like made a beeline for the door, and I was like, oh wait, what, the button, like we need to press the button. So he like came back, and I was like, but the nurse's station's right there. So he was like in the middle, like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. So he just went outside, and he was like, she's ready to have the baby. Like she says it's coming out. The moment she walked in that door, my water broke and it went everywhere. And I looked down and I said, why is there blood in my water? And she said, that's not blood, that's meconium, which if you don't know what that is when the baby has a bowel movement inside of the uterus. And that signals to them that the baby is in some sort of distress. So I kind of knew that. I kind of knew that meconium was not a good sign. So I literally start freaking out. I was like, this baby's coming out. This baby's coming out right now. So she's like, well, get on the bed, get on the bed. So I crawl up on the bed. I swear 50 people came into that room. I don't know how many it was actually, but it felt like a lot. And you know, when you deliver a baby, they still have like, 5 people there to help you, to help the baby, to help the doctor. So in a normal delivery, there's still quite a few people in the room, but this was a lot more. There was a lot more people. The midwife comes in. She starts like getting me set up and ready, checking me. And then all I remember is like whoever the nurse was to my right at the end, because there was meconium. She said, did we confirm if this baby was head down? And as soon as she said that, I got so mad because the entire pregnancy, I knew this baby was not in the same position that my other 2 were. Like just from where the kicks were, just how it moved and everything, like the way my body felt. And I said some really bad words I'm not gonna repeat right now. I was really mad. I was so mad that I was mad, number one, because I had expressed to my midwife that I didn't think it was necessarily not head down, but I had expressed to her that the position didn't seem right. Like I was getting kicked differently. And she kind of just was like, well, And when she checked me at 36 weeks, she said it was head down. So I just trusted her. So the second reason I was mad was because I didn't trust myself. I didn't insist on an ultrasound. Go to the baby belly and get a 3D ultrasound to find out. Like I just didn't trust myself. And that made me so mad that I had that instinct and I just ignored it. So I was mad. I was mad at my midwife, and I was mad at myself. And I was also just super, super scared, because as soon as she said that, I knew the baby wasn't. I knew it wasn't. And so she was like, call Dr. O'Brien, I think it was his name, the OBGYN on call. So he comes in, I think with two OBs came in, but he's the one that delivered. And I'm freaking out. I look at Bill, and because I was uneducated about this whole situation, delivering a breech baby. At that point, I was just like, well, I'm gonna have a C-section, like that's what's gonna happen. But then I find out, like, no, I'm just gonna end up pushing this baby out, and that scared me. And I look at Bill, and I'm just like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die. This is how I die. It like literally went through my head because I was so scared, because I didn't know anything, obviously, about the situation. One of the nurses, she was right here, she looked at me and she was like, one of our nurses delivered just exactly like this last week. You are gonna be fine. You're gonna be totally fine. And so she didn't actually smack me, but if there was a movie equivalent, it was like when somebody gets slapped in the face, like, snap out of it. And I did. I was like, okay, it's fine. I gotta concentrate. So I pushed maybe 3 or 4 times, not very much, but it really kind of felt like he was just pulling the baby out, which I'm really thankful for, because the situation was worse and more risky for a baby than it is for me to deliver that way, especially it being my 3rd baby. the baby comes out, I'm on my chest, and for some reason, it was the weirdest thing. I was so like traumatized that I didn't think anything of it when they did it. But then later I looked back, I was like, well, that was weird. Why did they do that? They put the baby on me and the butt in my face. So I don't know if it was because they literally it came out backwards. So they just set her on my chest, or like because we did do a surprise gender. They were like, oh, here it is. This is what you're having. But it was weird because my other two, you know, they set the baby up there with the head so you can see it and hold it and start nursing or whatever. And it was just weird. They put the butt in my face. So I thought that was strange later on. And then at that point, Bill was like, we had a girl. And I was like, it's a girl. And since I couldn't see her head, he was like, she has red hair. And I was like, what? So I was just totally surprised, A, that it was a girl, and B, that she had red hair. When I saw her, I immediately was like, okay, we're fine. She's crying. She looks fine. Everything is fine. I'm okay. Like, I guess my biggest fear was that I was just gonna like start hemorrhaging, like the butt or the head or something was gonna get stuck down there and I was gonna die. Like, I literally thought that. The nurse reassured me, like, in that time, that after the baby was born, that me having two babies previously, delivering two babies, made it possible for that to happen. Like, if she had been a first-time baby, it would have been a lot different of a situation. It would have been worse for her. Mainly, their biggest fear of delivering a breech baby is that the baby will cut off its own oxygen supply by getting the cord like smashed up against its body as it's coming out, or it doesn't come out because the butt is smaller than its head. So like the baby will come out, but it hasn't made wide enough opening as it was coming out for the head to come out. And later I found out when my midwife came to see me in the hospital room the next day, that if that happens, they actually would cut your cervix. Yeah. And that sounded terrifying, and I was just so grateful that none of that happened. It was like almost as normal of a delivery as it could have been given the circumstances. So I'm really, really grateful that it was fine. So yeah, that's the birth story. I delivered a frank breech baby vaginally in the US, which is really, really rare. From the experience of my two previous babies and that baby, the feeling of delivering it really wasn't different. Like, it didn't hurt worse. It didn't go differently other than my water not breaking first. When they first said, did we check if this baby was head down? I just figured a lot of pain was in my future. And when I was pushing, I mean, yeah, it hurt, obviously, like natural birth hurts. But it didn't feel different than pushing a head out, to be honest. But after everything settled down, we were still in the delivery room. The OB that delivered her came back in and he was like, were you a little bit traumatized? And I was like, yeah, just a tiny bit. It was a shock. Like, I didn't think that was gonna happen. Like, obviously you give two normal, very textbook births, and then their third one is not that way. Like, it's gonna come as a shock to you. Yeah, I was a little bit traumatized. Oh, I forgot to tell you. I was a 6 at 6:30 or 7, and she was born at 8:09 a.m. So that was a fast birth. That's pretty fast, in my opinion. So 4 a.m. contractions start. Baby born at 8:09. 4 hours. That's fast. But I did it, and if you're thinking about doing a natural birth, definitely doable. You can definitely get through it, but no judgment, obviously, if you decide to get medications, because it really, really hurts. So yeah, after all of that, after giving birth, I'm holding her, I'm nursing her, the OB talks to me. They were like, oh yeah, well, now we have to do a COVID test. Okay. I've been in the hospital for 2 hours, like, and you've had all these people around me. What's the point now? So anyway, this was the first COVID test I've ever had. Like, I've never taken one before. And I asked her, I was like, is it the one that goes all the way up there? She's like, yeah. So I did it. I took the dang COVID test. And then after she did it, I was like, well, when do I find out? And she's like, oh, it won't be for a few days. I was out of the hospital the next day, almost. I think we spent one night there. What's the point of that? My kids are yelling at me. They're like, who are you talking to? Anyway, I'm not saying like there shouldn't be COVID testing or anything, but why do a COVID test if you're not gonna get the results within the time frame that you know if you should be taking extra precaution during the hospital stay? I mean, if somebody could explain that to me, that'd be cool. But I was a little bit confused by that. That was the birth story of my third baby. I'm so glad like I'm not pregnant anymore and that it went fine, even though it was a little bit scary. If you have an interesting birth story, tell me in the comments down below. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. I have 3 babies. I like to vlog, and we live out in the country, and it's pretty simple, but I like doing it. And if you want to join our little family, please consider subscribing. But yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one.